Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight on the show, we discuss CF Montreal's match against Tampa Bay Rowdies. We preview CF Montreal's 2025 lineup and their first game of the season, and discuss CF Montreal's jersey reveal. That and a lot more on episode 214 of The Ballers Round. Hello, everyone. I'm joined by my good friend Elias and our guest Eureka Wheeler, which we'll get to you in a second. Elias, how you been, man?
It's a phenomenal weekend of soccer. Not
of the
Femini 151. What weather? I don't know what you're talking about.
If you don't look at it, it doesn't exist.
It's a soccer podcast. Weather does not exist in the soccer podcast.
Exactly.
Femini 1, Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid both drop points. Barcelona just have to win on Monday, tomorrow, and they are top of the table. Until they inevitably let me down, life is good. How's Bayern doing? Bayern got away. Bayern got away with murder.
Yes. Did you see that clip? Oh my God. So we played second place Bayer Leverkusen and we tied. Still in first place. It's all that matters. But it was a close one, and it sucked when it's that close. But behind the scenes, everything is going fine. And people are signing contracts. People are signing up for the future. They're
also Davies is rapping.
Yeah. Everything is going good. But as you guys can see, we have our guest, Eureka Wheeler from RBLR Sports with us. Hello. How you doing, man?
Hey guys, weather's a little nicer down here, I think.
Remember, the weather does not exist here. We exist in a realm outside weather.
Let's explain to him what a snow shovel is.
Yeah, so yeah.
So what's your favorite club? Talk to us, just to start.
Oh, okay, so I guess to wrap this up, Roma is my club in Serie A. We beat Parma, finally 3 points secured. It's been an up and down season for the Giallorossi, but we're gonna be all right. We're getting the tide down a little bit. We're making the waters a little more palatable, and next year I think is where we'll make our mark. We're still in the Europa
next year.
There you go.
But whatever.
That's it. So as you guys can see, we have Eureka here for a reason. You guys can see his background. We're going to head into our first topic of the day. So we're going to recap the preseason game versus Tampa Bay Rowdies. CF Montreal played their last preseason game versus USL side Tampa Bay Rowdies last night. Like we have done in many previous preseasons, the game wasn't streamed. But we're lucky to have Eureka Wheeler, who covers the Rowdies from RBLR Sports, as I said earlier. Welcome to the show, and thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what RBLR does?
Yeah, great. First, Andy, Elias, thank you so much for having me on the show. My name is Eureka Wheeler. I'm the producer of RBLR Sports. We cover all of the professional sports here in Tampa Bay. We inject that passion back into the coverage of the teams. We, like you, I think very similarly. We love it when they win. We hate it when they lose, but we want to cover them from the angle of, the praise when they are deserving of it and the criticism when it's warranted. So we try to be very realistic, but we feel the joy and the pain that all of us fans feel. We try to give the people of Tampa Bay around the world more of the team and the coverage that they wanted. Nice. So the Rowdies, in America, second division is kind of sort of seen as a minor league, as a very like non-professional kind of atmosphere. So we definitely wanted to make sure that we give the Rowdies the same coverage, the same in-depth analysis that we do for all of the NFL, MLB, NHL teams that we have. So we've been doing that for this is our fifth season now of covering the Rowdies now, and I think it's been a wonderful project. It's been something that's shown me the passion that people do have for soccer and for the Rowdies, who now we're in their what is it, the 50th anniversary of the club. It's one of the few American soccer clubs that have a deep, rich history from all the way back in the NASL days to the number of leagues that have popped up in America as it sort of bubbles up and down with its popularity, as soccer's popularity in America. So
absolutely, and you did mention to me that in yesterday's game it was open to I think it was first come first serve to the fans of the Tampa Bay Rowdies, and you told me there was a good amount of people fans that showed up for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. So what can you tell? What can you tell me before we actually get into the observations of the game?
Yeah, please.
What can you tell us a little bit about the Rowdies this season? What kind of team was CF Montreal playing?
Yep.
We know that they have Women's Plashes, a CF Montreal Academy product that is on loan.
Yep.
So what can you tell us about the Rowdies?
Yeah, so the Rowdies actually are going through their own renovations. We had, you guys had snowstorms. We were hit with multiple hurricanes in the last few months. Yeah. So our stadium is actually still being renovated. So some people are using some of the other training facilities the Rowdies have, MLS teams and other from other countries, but the Rowdies had to play this in a facility in Auburndale, which is just south of Orlando. About 1,500 people showed up. It was promoted kind of in the outside areas for families and things to show up, but this definitely was away from the major population areas. But the Rowdies themselves, you mentioned Woobens, who is a brand new player for us. They're still implementing him into the system, but around the entire lineup, like the lineup that played Montreal last night, if you look at Nico Campisi, Argentinian Premier League, Lawrence Wyke, MLS, Robert Castellanos, MLS, Aaron Guillen is a top USL defender. He was a homegrown for FC Dallas. Nate Worth is a U.S. men's national youth team player. Ali Bassett was another guy who played at Atletico Ottawa. Danny Crisostomo, MLS. Blake Bodley, Portland Timbers, MLS. Like around the pitch, the Rowdies.
They're no slouch.
The Rowdies are definitely one of the premier teams in the USL Championship, which itself is a league that is growing more in. A number of people are now in Europe that have come for USL, sort of becoming its own pipeline to Europe outside of the MLS system. So, in its own right, the Rowdies are a top defending team. I wouldn't say that they're title contenders, but the Eastern Conference is a hell gauntlet of which like any number of teams can come out of and should compete for a championship. So the Rowdies definitely have a lot of top end talent. If we had a promotion relegation, take a drink. The Rowdies would definitely be a mid to lower team, like as constructed, would probably be a mid to lower tier MLS team. I think.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's good. That's good. So we it sounds like they played a very exciting team with a lot of talent. CF Montreal yesterday.
Yeah.
So based on what we discussed before the show, we can. Yeah. We kind of with Elias, we kind of had to dissect a little bit because Eureka, obviously you don't follow CF Montreal as we do, and you don't know as much as information as we do. So we were able to deduct, and this is what the lineup, Elias, that we came up with, right?
Yeah.
So at the top we see that we had Sunusi Ibrahim, number 14. Then below him we had Bryce Duke, and Julien Anthony Vilsaint. Midfield we had Caden Clark, Victor Luturi. On the left hand side as a wingback we had Tom Pierce. On the right wing back, we had David Bugai. On center back, we had Fernando Alvarez. Then we had Brendan Craig and Usman Jabang. And goalie, we had Sebastian Breza, and I think he was captaining the team.
That's correct.
So what do we and Eureka, we'll get to your observations in a second. I'm sorry about that. So Elias, when you look at that, when you look at that lineup, what does that tell you?
That there's still a lot of positions up for grabs, I think. Caden Clark playing in the double pivot was the most interesting thing for sure. That definitely wasn't for depth reasons because they have all these players available to them. I think really they were trying to experiment there. But again, there's a lot of elements there where you're like, these are starting players in starting combinations, right? Fernando Alvarez and Tom Pierce, that's a starting combination on that left side. Bryce Duke and Jonathan Vilsaint could very well be a pairing that sees a lot of time together. And you throw Caden Clark into the mix when they're going forward. These are starting combinations. Sunusi Ibrahim right now seems to be in pole position to start up top because Giacomo Vrioni is, it seems like that, right? Giacomo Vrioni is not, is not 100% fit yet. He's taken a long time to get back into the lineup. And, Prince Owusu has been kind of mercurial with his finishing, as we've seen in person and, through reports of other friendlies. So I think Sunusi, and given the fact that he scored again, I think he's in pole position right now to at least fight for the starting spot. And I don't see why not.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind, Elias, just pulling up that lineup again. I find it very interesting because Vilsain has been one of the players that we've seen in training camp and in previous friendlies that he's actually been the more impressive player that has that hopefully he stays healthy and he can definitely perform. But yeah, Elias, as you mentioned, a very very interesting combination between Duke and Vilsain. And then we saw Clark playing midfield last year at some points during the season, and it's pretty it's pretty interesting that they're trying him out there again. Again, obviously in preseason to see what maybe practicing that emergency situation where we would need him there, where CF Montreal would need him there. But yeah, did this feel like a starting caliber, Elias, or did it feel like maybe it was the second replacement for that Philly game where they might again? Nobody saw anything. Nobody heard anything of the Philly game because everything was closed. So do you think that this was a backup? Do you think this was more of a starting lineup?
Bit of everything, right? Like I said, there were starting combinations, but people like Victor Latourie, people like Ousmane Jabang, people like David Bougai are in positions where they can compete for the starting spot. And if not for the starting spot, prominent minutes, either as a sub or what have you. So I think that these are all people that are in the conversation to start. I think the fact that, of all the new quote unquote signings that were defenders, Brendan Craig getting the only start is telling. I think above Dante Seeley, above Luca Petrasso. We still don't know the fitness of Jalen Neal. I guess we'll find out more when Hongota meets the media this week.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that he was the one that got the starting spot is telling that maybe he's that fourth string right now in the back three. But yeah, Eureka, we're all speculating here.
Yeah.
On the field,
yeah.
How did they look? How did the game go? What were your impressions?
To go with what you're saying, I think it can be reasoned that this lineup was with them playing literally 24 hours before that they might have played some of their first stringers more the day before, and this was like a tune-up for the kind of, like you said, the positional battles and for the second stringers and third stringers later on to kind of come in. And to be honest with you, I believe Duke's coming off an injury. This is some things I was trying to poke around at the night. So because I was like, I thought Duke was one of the guys who would be a starter, but if he's playing at this for this kind of with all the second stringers in, I think that this was a good quality matchup for you, thinking from your guys' side, to say, hey, if our backups, if our guys that are fighting for positions and fighting for roster spots can hang with the Tampa Bay Rowdies, then they're gonna be just fine. To play spot minutes and things like that in the MLS for sure.
And just in a very global approach, what were your thoughts of the game overall?
I thought it was a very good, clean, friendly. To be honest with you, it was very, very fast paced, very, very much a struggle from both teams. My short synopsis is kind of the first, and this is something that I backed up with speaking with head coach Robbie Nielsen of the Tampa Bay Rowdies, is that the first 15 minutes, Montreal just was overrunning the Rowdies. Like it was a quicker pace, better decisions. It was almost like the Rowdies were kind of getting their bearings set. Unfortunately for Montreal, though, no goals were scored. There was a couple. In fact, there was. If you look at the halftime, Montreal had 2 shots on target and Tampa Bay had 1. So if that tells you that the first half was just more of a defensive struggle, both teams really trying to get out, but couldn't really, make headway in terms of long balls or make terms of like good breakouts. And I mean that it wasn't sloppy. It wasn't like guys missing targets or missing passes. It was just crisp defense from both teams. Good decisions that unfortunately were thwarted by clearances and interceptions and a lot of corners between both teams, but just no penetration for at least the first 15, 20 minutes. The Rowdies, though, did regain after that first 15, 16 minutes. They were the team that owned possession. And I don't know if that was a tactical change on Montreal's part or the Rowdies just kind of figured it out finally, said, oh, okay, here's the level, here's the speed we need to play at. But the Rowdies were able to possess the ball for the next 25 or so minutes. Again, they weren't able to create many chances on net either, though. So I thought this was if people who love defensive football, I think would have loved to watch the first half here, because that's what you got out of that. I'm trying to think if there was anything I would add to your lineup. Craig in the center was, again, good clearances, because Manuel Arteaga and Woobens were definitely they're still trying to figure out their chemistry, but looks like they could be a pretty potent attack at our level anyway.
Nice. You mentioned set pieces, and a lot of corners. That's something both sides of the ball has been kind of a very strong Achilles heel for Montreal.
Okay.
How did they look? Because this offseason there's been renewed efforts to even have a dedicated set pieces coach. Yeah. How did it look offensively and defensively? Was there any kind of danger there, or was it really just corners?
No, I definitely thought that the few set pieces that there were that weren't just corners, but like if there was something off of a foul. I mean, it was a very spirited contest. Like they were getting after it. Both teams were getting after it. Everyone had points to prove for sure. But off of those, the goalies didn't have to make a lot of saves, but the defenders definitely made a ton. It was sort of like after the first touch. There weren't a lot of rebound opportunities. There weren't a lot of sloppy kind of, chaotic things in the box where opportunities could arise. It was pretty good set pieces, good delivery, good. It was very apparent that they're a very good, well-run team in the set piece area, but just couldn't. I thought so. I thought they. I thought it was good delivery. There weren't a lot of like, okay, went over the net, or it went too far. Oh, they didn't deliver it to where there was a collection of guys to receive the ball. Like I thought it was.
Honestly, that's a relief to hear. I think Elias, because
I think anyone listening to this podcast is going, "Are you sure you watch Montreal?"
Yeah.
Well, because it wasn't something I took a note of, but I think that in itself,
if it doesn't,
that's a good thing. That is a very good thing. Yeah,
I wasn't like, oh my god, these guys can't serve the ball. They're kicking it too far. Like I didn't notice any of that.
Okay, and were there any Montreal player in particular that stood out to you with their performance?
Absolutely. So I thought that Vilsaint, 28, he's very tall, very quick, but also like I said, it was a little feisty, it was a little chippy, but it wasn't dirty, but it was just spirited, I guess is the way I'd say. What you want football to be. Yeah. So 28 for sure. One of the goal scorers. He had 2 goals, I believe, on the night. Mm-hmm. And they both came from. It wasn't like. On the counterattack was one of them, so he was able to use his speed very, very well on a good. The first goal was a through ball that he was able to pick up and score on the other side of the pitch from where I was sitting, so I couldn't see exactly. But the second goal he scored was an absolute very good coming from the left side. I can't remember if it was Duke or Pierce, but on the left side. Montreal had the ball coming down, just a really good through ball into the box where 28 was able to have a 1v1 versus our goalkeeper, and it was a no doubter. It was very good right off the touch. Didn't get cute with it. Just got the ball, got the touch, got the goal. It was very good from you guys.
The Rowdies did manage to pull one back.
We did.
Talk to us about that. Was it a mistaken defense? Was it a nice sequence of play? What went down there?
A very good defensive effort on the high. We play high press. We play very aggressively, and that's I think the Rowdies would love to win every game 5-4. To be honest with you, it's just my opinion. I think they would love to win 5.
Mirror images.
Yeah. So we play the high press very much, and our our team was able to get the ball right above the box, and Woobens came off of that on his own. He was coming from the left side, and again, it was just we earned possession. We made a really good pass. Woobens had a one-on-one against number one, and again, it was nothing that he could do either. It was just a good goal. Nothing against the goal. It wasn't like a sloppy move. It's just 50-50 chance. What are you going to do with it? And Woobens buried it. So, but then literally, so there was 2-1. Literally 30 seconds later, we conceded. Montreal scored another goal, and that was that. At this point, I believe that was at like the 60th or 70th minute or something like that. At this point,
67th minute, they said on Twitter.
At this point of the game, the trialists are coming in for kind of both teams, and really after 60 minutes, it was sort of like, again, I won't. Then it was a little more sloppy, but again, we have literal academy kids playing on our side versus whoever's at the very, very bottom of the depth of your roster. If I'm assuming it's guys that haven't been announced, it's probably a bunch of players who they don't want their names and numbers being put out there. But
I believe there's 1 or 2 academy players that are still there in Florida that haven't signed contracts.
Yeah.
It's very possible they got minutes. But yeah, can you talk to us a bit about Sunusi's goal, that third one? Because he's also been he had a really good stretch season in the middle, then he kind of just disappeared off the map. He got no minutes, and he scored, I think, in 3 different friendlies. This is his third game he scored in preseason.
So right after our goal, there, that's when kind of the play kind of changed a little bit. Where Montreal on that third one, it was just a long ball got caught. It went down that left side, and then that's why what's his name was Sanusi was right up at top, and put it right by the goalkeeper. So I wish there was a replay to see, like, did we get a hand on it? Was it like I was on the opposite end of the pitch again from when that happened, but from what I saw, just kind of went deep ball, got on the left, move it to Sanusi, boom, put it by. Literally, I was still talking with someone about the goal that had just happened because they had footage, and I was looking. I was like, oh wow, and that's why I knew about the defensive. Anyway, we're literally going back over it, and then what? Wait, ball, boom, goal. What's going on here? Yeah, it was one of those wham bam. Thank you, ma'am.
That's interesting. I mean, thank you for taking us through that. So, what kind of style would you tell us that you saw Montreal play? Did they play a high press? Did they play low? How?
Yeah, I thought it was 2 teams playing very similar brands of football. I think you guys wanted to come out in that high press. It was defensive battles all over the field. It was people were trying to get the ball immediately. No one was parking the bus. It was all about get the ball, get the possession, move the ball up the field.
Okay.
So I thought you guys, even if this was your second stringers, I thought that you guys came out with a lot of fire, a lot of spirit, and again, I think it bears well from your depth pieces that you were able to play this style.
Well, that's one thing that Montreal kind of did a good job in, or at least did focused on this offseason, was getting better depth, and not just depth for the sake of depth, but like people that can actually compete for starting spots. So it's good to see that they're making good on that.
Yeah, and it's you walked us through a goal. So look, Eureka, we appreciate so much because as we can see in the comments, some of our listeners are very appreciative of your presence here, and so are we. As Tate says, many thanks, and it was what we wanted to hear, right? What we wanted to hear, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now, before we let you go, where can our listeners find you guys for anything Tampa Bay Rowdies?
Yeah, please. If you guys need an American club in the 2nd division to follow this year, if you want to follow, Woobens, who's a product of your guys' academy. We are at RBLR Sports is our main account, but RBLR Rowdies is where you can find all of our content. We do a weekly podcast covering our Tampa Bay Rowdies, the good, the bad, the in between. We get regular interviews with coaches, players. We're there at the games. We're at the press conferences. We do the work. So please RBLR Rowdies on every form of social media, and youtube.com/@RBLR Sports for our broadcast. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Elias, for contacting, reaching out. This was hopefully. I wish we would have done this sooner. I think we would have had a good partnership sooner.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
We could have talked some smack before the game too.
Yeah. For sure.
Next year, don't worry about it. It's coming next year.
Yeah.
Look out for that.
There's a start. But no, honestly, it was great meeting you, Eureka. Thank you so much for everything you shared with us and shared with our listeners. We really appreciate it. And honestly, Elias, I might be wrong here, but we just wanted to get a taste of what it's like to be warm right now, because we are dealing with this horrendous winter storm that we haven't, that all our listeners, and most of them live in Montreal, or if not have at some point. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. So enjoy walking, enjoy what grass looks like, because we haven't seen grass.
Florida got a little bit of snow not too long ago. All right, guys, we know exactly what it's like.
Wow. So sad. Do you want to?
My heart, she bleeds for you.
Did you get your winter jacket out of the attic?
Warm up. I hope your Godspeed to your internet services and your snow shovels. I pray you're able to complete the rest of this. So,
I already lost power once today, so.
Oh God. Well, I'm praying for you.
We didn't even tell. Anyways, Eureka, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you nothing but the best for your season with the Tampa Bay Rowdies, and thank you again.
Cheers.
Good one. All right, Elias. So we're lucky to have
absolutely.
We're lucky to have this. So to have Mr. Eureka with us. What are your thoughts on what we saw with the lineups and the results of the game, Elias? Just a quick recap there.
Other years it's been difficult against the Rowdies. It's been, and again, I'm not trying to extrapolate anything, because it is a friendly with a different team and all that stuff. But there's been years where playing the Rowdies was brutal, right? Mm-hmm. Either because they couldn't get anything going, or because the Rowdies were literally outplaying them at some points. But this was comprehensive and confident victory, right? They got 2 goals early, and the second there was any kind of, oh shit, here it goes again, they shut that down immediately. They added a third one, and they kind of kept the distance, and they closed the game out, which is, again, that's exactly what you want from this team, because killing games off has been such a pain in the last couple of years, that if they can sustainably do this, then it's going to make their life so much easier if they can close games out and secure a point instead of losing, or secure a win instead of settling for a draw. That's crucial.
So it's definitely feels like one of those wins that Montreal is supposed to get, and that's what it felt like last year too, that they were supposed to get that victory, but they didn't.
They did.
So yeah, it was important, I think, in my opinion, and just what Eureka gave us. I mean, a lot of positive things, right? We were at the level. There was energy. There was willingness to score from players that are very that need to prove something, right, in the roster, that they're fighting for a spot. So it's very positive to hear those kind of things. Now we're gonna move on to our second segment because, Elias, we officially are 7 days away from the big effing day. CF Montreal's first game of the 2025 season against Atlanta United on Saturday night, the 22nd. Same team that eliminated them out of the play-in in 2024. Play-in in 2024. Let's try to say that 10 times in a row. So we wanted to do a quick preview of what the CF Montreal lineup might look for the Atlanta game based on everything we know today. Aujourd'hui. I will also be asking for a wacky prediction for each position as well, except goalkeeper. But a wacky prediction. Elias, the wacky prediction could be anything. So if I ask you for a wacky prediction for the wing,
Rodolphe was going to score a goal this year.
Oh, okay. So you already understood what I want.
Yes, sir.
We didn't talk before the show, but
more reasonably an assist. That's not ridiculous.
He will not score an own goal. All right. So we'll start with the goalie position. So goalkeeper, who starts?
I mean, at this point, I don't think it's much of a conversation. I think it's Jonathan Sirois. Mm-hmm. You got to go with, your first choice keeper. Brazil getting starts is good, but it's preseason. The important thing is about him now making the most of the few chances he does get, right? That's what you do when you're a backup. You don't get many opportunities, so you have to make the most. Last year was not the case, right? He got a few chances and he didn't really make the most of them. This year, if he wants any kind of minutes, any kind of sustained minutes or competition, you gotta give Courtois something to think about, right?
Yeah. And then we got the new goalie coach too, right? They have a new goalie coach. It's not, I forgot his name. I don't know his name on Vincenzo. I forgot his name, but from Bologna that hopefully can see something. And I agree with you. I agree completely with what Elias is saying.
But you agree with my prediction. I was like, you think he's gonna get an assist too? Oh.
No, the wacky prediction. I think the wacky prediction, I don't know if it's so wacky, but I think that if Jonathan Sirois has a string of games that he's not able to perform at a top level, he's going to be replaced by Sebastian Breza because it's his.
That is kind of wacky.
It is wacky, and then people will not want to hear that. But I mean, I've seen Sebastian Breza in practice when Marivic, and I can't say he did bad. I mean, he's not wow either, but I mean, it's a wacky prediction, and it might come back to bite me in the ass, but I don't care. It's just a wacky prediction. So, so next up, we have the defense, center backs, right? Who starts?
We have
no explanation. No explanation. Just give names.
Oh, Alvarez, Waterman, Campbell.
Alvarez, Waterman, Campbell.
Yeah.
Alvarez, Waterman, Campbell. I would agree with you. Yeah. Okay. Who's your player to watch?
For
2025, okay? This is for 2025, not for that game. For 2025. In the defense, center back. Who's your player? We have a lot of players to watch there, but who are you watching close?
The easy answer is Jalen Neal, but I also don't want the answer to be Jalen Neal because, yes, this is one of the most promising center backs in MLS, not just, the Montreal squad. My player to watch is George Campbell because when you look at the way he played last season, the highs were astronomical. I'm talking about one of the best on-ball defenders in the league, and the lows were diabolical. The lows were lower than low, right? Granted, there weren't that many. I do think they did a good job in terms of becoming more consistent from 2 years ago, from under Hernán Losada. Like there was definitely an evolution in terms of decision making and consistency, but there were still those moments where George Campbell was, that's 2023 George Campbell. But there were also moments where I understand why this guy was, honestly, I think kind of, snubbed for the Olympic team and also is earning national team call-ups. Because if you can focus that consistency, I'm not saying operate at the highest level every single game, but bring up that floor, it's only going to be better. And he is poised to have this kind of Joe Waterman style breakout season. Where remember, Joe Waterman was that guy on the right-handed side that just needed that consistency to get to that next level. And in 2022, he brought it. That's where George Campbell is too. Fernando Alvarez is very similar, but I feel like everyone's been talking about Fernando Alvarez, and people haven't really been talking about George Campbell. So for me, I'm my eyes, George Campbell for sure.
Oh man, I see it the other way around. I think everybody's been talking about George Campbell, and nobody's been talking about it. We've kind of forgotten about Fernando Alvarez, and justifiably so, because his performances towards the end of the season weren't per se wow either, So, yeah, absolutely. I think my player to watch is Fernando Alvarez. The reason being is because of the changes that have occurred, right? He changed, he changed agents, and he also had there were rumors that he already had offers that from Mexico that he actually declined because he wants to go to Europe. So it's going to be his third year in CF Montreal, 2.5 years. What's next? What he needs. I think he's the player to watch to take that next step this season, and he's very young still. So, but yeah, at some point, like there's no longer that excuse of adapting to the league, adapting to the language. He's been here for a bit. So, do you have any wacky predictions for anybody in the defense? Some crazy ass prediction for 2025.
No, I don't. Okay, nonsense. Joel Waterman's going to be an all-star. That's my prediction.
MLS All-Star? I like that.
No, NHL all-star. Yeah, that's my wacky prediction. I think Joel Waterman is going to be an MLS all-star.
Okay. He's going to win the dunk contest? But no, okay. So, yeah, I definitely, like, one of the wacky predictions I would have, I don't know if it's so wacky, but I think that Fernando Alvarez stays the whole year and never gets sold.
Why is that wacky?
Well, because everybody's saying he's going to be sold. I don't know. It's not really wacky, is it? Maybe I missed.
I don't think. Well, he hasn't left yet. I don't think he's leaving mid-season unless it's for fat stacks, and I don't think that's happening. So I think he's here at the year.
Okay, that was not a wacky prediction, Andy. You got to be better at that. So, wing back. Who starts? No explanation. Just say it.
Pearson, JMR.
You think Tom Pierce is going to start and JMR?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's your player to watch in that position?
Dante Seeley.
Yes.
Dante Seeley, for the reason that he has the ability to be a Juan or Raheem Edwards kind of player where you get the most out of him on both sides of the ball. He has the profile for it. Does he have the attitude? Does he have the mentality for it? I think that's the interesting part.
Consistency.
First off, I think Tom Pierce is going to start because I just think that he has the familiarity with it, and he has that delivery that just cannot be replicated by anyone on the team, I think, right now. And when it comes to things like that, right, especially when you're playing on the road, when you need something out of nothing, sometimes that something out of nothing comes from just a phenomenal ball from your wingback who just gets into the right spot, and then boom, right? You've got your striker on a plate. So I do think he's going to start. I think the fitness issues are going to be kind of curbed a little bit, right? I don't think he's going to turn into Juan, who runs 15 kilometers a game and has a top speed of 24 miles an hour or whatever. Yeah. But I do think that from a physical perspective, just keeping up with the pace of the game, he's going to do a lot more. But Dante Seeley is in a position where he can really make that difficult, more so than Devin Bougai can make it difficult for Jaquil Marshall-Rudy, I think.
Okay. I disagree. I don't think Tom Pierce is going to start. I believe Seeley is going to start, and because he knows the league better than Tom Pierce does. And his defense might be better, not the best, just better than Tom Pierce. I do agree with JMR that's going to be on the right. But Seeley, I think Tom Pierce, in my opinion, will be getting used more as a backup when the team is behind and they need a score, as we saw last season, where he was just crossing the ball and they were playing for free kicks for him to kick those free kicks, because he has an insane free kick. And when the team really, really needs to score, I think that's when we're going to see. So he's going to be a very situational player, in my opinion. Now, I'm just trying to think now, Elias, because why did I choose the word wacky? Why didn't I say crazy prediction or something like that? Like what prediction do you have in the wingback position for the 2025? A scenario or something? I don't know. I'll give you mine. Say I think
you go first this time.
Yeah. So my prediction for 2025 for the wingback position is that we are not going to finish 2025 with the same starting wingbacks because they're going to be sold.
Interesting. That's a good one. See,
Took me a minute. I'm sick.
My wacky prediction is Jaquil Marshall is going to get called up to the national team. That's my wacky prediction.
I like it.
Especially with all the fullbacks that are amazing for Canada right now. He's going to, at least maybe not Natal Saliba last year capacity, maybe not necessarily get minutes, but he's going to get called up for a window. I see the vision.
Sorry, I apologize. So next up we have midfielders. Who starts? No explanation needed.
Saliba Piet.
Okay, agreed.
I
Player to watch?
You can't really. Sorry?
Player to watch?
Natal Saliba feels like too obvious an answer, right? It's too obvious. So I'm going to say No, I'm going to save him for later. I'm going to say Victor Lottori. Because I do generally think he can give Samuel Piet a run for his money. A very serious run for his money. Especially if Piet comes into fitness problems. Because we know that Samuel Piet very rarely plays full 90s. Very rarely. And if Victor Lottori can come in as an alternative that is more physically fit. There's a knock on Samuel Piet's fitness. He is a workhorse. But more of a capacity of if I can get a similar production for 90 minutes without having to worry about, okay, I can't keep him for the whole game, even if I want to, that is extremely valuable, especially on the road. And I do think that he brings something technically that Samuel Piet either does not have or is not in a capacity right now tactically to provide. So Victor Lottori is my guy to watch because he could be very problematic.
I agree with you.
Hierarchy.
I agree with you, and I do agree with you that he's he's coming back to Canada from his time in Scotland, and I do think he's a kind of there were I heard around the club that they were very, very surprised that he was actually available when he was. So it might be very interesting to his homecoming here. Not too young, not too old. I believe he's 23 years old.
23, it's still kind of young.
Yeah. And so he's a very, very interesting profile to see. Wacky prediction for the midfield.
Wacky prediction.
And people are going to hate me for my wacky prediction.
Oh, Hattie's going to hate me. No, he won't. My prediction makes no sense. Nathan Saliba will become if not starter with the national team, will become a immediate second string above Choignard and Osorio.
Above Choignard. Well, Choignard right now.
Ça va mal.
Ça va pas bien. So no, my wacky prediction, and I said people are not gonna like me for it, but I think that over the season, Samuel Piet is gonna be is gonna end up the season maybe in the bench, and not because he's a bad player. I just think that there's other players, as we mentioned, Victor Loturi, or even Fabien Herbers that plays the position. Ousmane Diabang also. So I think he will start the season, but as the season goes on, he will see more on the bench. And again, that's a wacky prediction. It might come to bite me in the ass. I'm open to it. Hattie would not be happy with you.
I think he's talking to both of us because we both said that Piet's spot is under threat. But yeah, we're gonna hear about it in the group chat. Okay. What are you talking about?
It's okay. We set ourselves up for that, right? So okay, next up we have the attack. Who's this? This attack is tricky, man. Who starts? And I put NY, but we don't have to explain why. So who starts in the attack? We have the three, right? Because the president said we're gonna use the three.
I think I can't not say Clark, Vise, and Sanusi, because when you combine quality and performance in the preseason, it's tough to argue against anybody else. Sanusi has made a habit out of scoring on the road. So if we're talking about starters for Atlanta, it's kind of tough to argue against that. But, I mean, I can't really argue against that.
I mean, I think who starts, I'm going to say Clark, Duke, and Owusu. Just based on... I don't know, man. I don't know.
I get it, especially on the road. I understand.
Yeah, but I mean, it's going to be a test and trial. They might even put Sanusi up there if Owusu doesn't need some time, I guess. I don't know. But I think Bryce Duke and Caden Clark have solidified their position, even though I think that Julian Vincent is my player to watch, which is the next one, right? The player to watch. I know a lot of people are talking about the hype of Caden Clark. I get it. He's a very good player and did very good things at the end of the year.
Player to watch.
But Julian Vincent, based on what I saw in camp and based on the performances he's been putting on in the preseason, I think he's going to be special. And he's going to have a big season if he can stay healthy. Big thing. If he can stay healthy, please give me 5 games in a row and give me that and I'll be happy. No, but I mean, again, as an observer, it's frustrating to see him go down for injury, but I can only imagine him in his mind how hard that must be to not be able to continue, string together performances. So he's my player to watch. Jonathan Vincent this season, big question mark as to how what CF Montreal is getting out of him, right? Yeah. What about you, player to watch?
Sanusi Ibrahim is a very close second because the first time he's been a striker without a de facto starting striker. And I think this is the year where he's finally like, I have a chance at this. I'm going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
But my player to watch, and the reason I didn't say him for the midfield, is Fabian Herbers.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, related to Jean-Anthony Vincent's fitness, it's kind of dubious at best. Fabian Herbers will show that he is a more reliable alternative than Bryce Duke. And so the way that Caden Clark and Bryce Duke, from a profile perspective, complemented each other so well at the end of last season when they finally started getting it, Fabian Herbers reminds me a lot of that, but with more experience and more decisiveness than Bryce Duke. So I think in that capacity, I could absolutely see him starting. Because, again, when you think about it, there's nobody. How old is Samuel Piet?
He's hitting his 30, no?
Is he turning 30? My point anyway. He's probably what, like
30? Yeah, he's already 30.
Yeah. Besides that, there's nobody over the age of 30 in the starting lineup that we just said. There's nobody. I think you do need that kind of level of experience on the field. You can't just have one 30-year-old and a bunch of kids running around because that way is not the most sustainable thing. Fabian Herbers, with his MLS experience and his quality and his versatility, could be a very interesting thing because that lets Caden Clark do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
Because you have Fabian Herbers as that transitionary midfielder, that kind of Bryce Duke was, but more reliably. And Caden Clark can now do what he does best, which is impact the game on his own terms. Yeah. He does not have to do as much heavy lifting. So my player to watch the midfield in the attack is Fabian Herbers as a 10.
I agree because, well, no, it's a close second to Jonathan Vincent because Fabian Herbers is not a starter and it's not a project. I apologize, it's not a project. But one of the things that we observed in training camp when we went Marie-Victorin was his style of play was very much about he does his job. He does his job the best, the way he's supposed to do it, and he's not looking to be a fancy playmaker or stand out with goals. He just does his job, and that's something that we haven't seen in that position in a very long time. We've seen a lot of players that like to, be the player, or they're labeled as the player, including Matko, right? When Bryce was brought in, he was supposed to be the player. That it's always been the player that replaces Georgi Mihailovic, right? Who's the next Georgi Mihailovic? But it feels like now we found a player that just what we said all of us last season about Samuel Piet, that likes to do his job, just does his job and lets everybody else around them do the fancy stuff, right? So absolutely,
you win by committee, right? You got to win by committee, and you do that with players that just are good, reliable role players sometimes.
Yeah, and it's regardless of the most important thing that we're gonna have to see from him is it consistent over time, right? Because one of the things with Bryce Duke that we saw is that he had incredible performances throughout the year. He did, but as soon as something went wrong, or maybe he wasn't, he had a string of bad things happen to him throughout the game, all of a sudden he would kind of stop. He would just disappear out of the game. So definitely need to see some consistency. Do we have any wacky predictions for the attack? I'll say it. Vrioni scores 18.
That's good job.
No,
that is a wacky one. Good job. You're getting it.
I made it and I don't get it. He grabbed the mic too to say something and now he goes back. Come on, man.
Because I had a vision, but I'm like, I can't just keep talking about national team calls because that's kind of basic. Okay, my wacky prediction is Caden Clark is going to become an MVP candidate.
Oh,
that's my wacky prediction.
I like it. All right, you have a wacky predictions. It's a clip.
Not CF Montreal MVP, MLS MVP.
You know what? Today it's a wacky prediction, but at the end of the season, if any of these turn out to be right, we'll clip it and be like,
me a madman.
We told you guys. We knew what we were saying. or if not, it's gonna go to trash and never say it again. So
I'm deleting the episode if it doesn't happen. That's what you're talking about.
Just never said it. Never happened. Snowstorm. So where? Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more. We did all the positions now, but so Elias, now without explanation, where will CF Montreal finish in the standings this year?
Hate you. 6th.
I said 7th. I think they'll make it to playoffs and not do play-in. They'll surpass play-in.
That's fair. 6th.
All right, guys. If our listeners, you guys have any predictions, or you guys have your own predictions as to where CF Montreal will finish in the standings this year, don't hesitate to put it. Don't hesitate to put in the chat. We'll definitely gonna discuss it. Be interesting. Do we know if Leone has joined the collective or is still working out alone? Based on what we heard, nothing. Nothing. We haven't heard.
I told you Robbie wasn't gonna like that.
Yeah, guys, come on. All right, so what phase? So now we're gonna talk a little bit more about the Atlanta game. So, what phase of the game will you be observing the most during the game, the Atlanta game?
It has to be the defense. It has to be, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're not going to walk into in a road game and just dominate everybody. You're not at that level yet, right? You very well could be, but I'd be very surprised if they just walked in and walked all over Atlanta, who again have also made some improvements and who are at home.
Massive.
Playing Atlanta is very tricky. Playing Atlanta last year was tricky. Playing Atlanta this year is going to be even trickier.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be looking at the defense because, again, like Eureka was talking about, it was very crisp and decisive defensive work. I want to see if that crispness and that decisiveness can continue, right? Not necessarily in, oh my God, look how well they played out from the back that one time. Okay, there's promise there. No. In your actions consistently for 90 minutes, do you control your area with authority, right? Do you go, you may get by me, but as a unit, we are not getting beat tonight. And that's what I want to see because that is that kind of attitude that we saw in years past, especially in 2022 when they handled teams. In the last couple of years, that has fallen by the wayside. Can they find that again? I think they have the ability to, but now it's about implementing it consistently. And this is the first, you have to start on the right foot. So I want to see them handle Atlanta and want to see them do it with authority.
Right. Absolutely. They need to that's definitely the same phase I'm going to be looking for, Elias, but it's more of an organic aspect of the defense in the sense that I want to see how that front three is pressing, how organically they're working as a defense. Does it work? Because one of the things they said about the reasons they signed Prince Owusu was because of his presence on the defensive side as a forward, right? So, and he said he's not afraid to defend and all that. That's definitely something to keep an eye on because I think it's important. And we did have a few predictions. Patrick White says 7th or 6th, so he agrees with us, Elias. If they make a good addition this summer,
I agree with that.
So
I think they're going to get active in the summer too. I would be surprised if they didn't.
Sales and purchases. Yeah.
But Robbie, of course, Robbie being Robbie, Mans are 10th. That's kind of optimistic for Robbie.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, it really is. I was like, I'm surprised.
A play-in spot?
Is there only 10 teams in the MLS? Anyway, so what phase of the game? So we said defense. I'm gonna do the observing the defense as well. What do you expect of Laurent Courtois for his first game of 2025? Is there an expectation? It's not his first game anymore in MLS. It's his second year, first opening game. What are you expecting this time around from him?
Last year, we were giving him flowers for just making the right decision. Eventually he did. He was right to make that substitution or to make that tactical change. If only he had made it sooner. Or, he did this well. But, we kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt as a rookie coach on a lot of things. This year, I need him to be able to organize his team in an effective manner that maximize everything from the get-go. Right, I don't want to see him having to adjust all the time because again, we talked about, he made a good adjustment here. You shouldn't have to be adjusting every single game.
Yeah.
Right. So I get it. If you're on the road or something like that happens, then yeah, adjustments are called for. But this year, the next evolution, again, you're looking at evolutions in your players. We want to see evolutions in the coach as well. you have to be able to put your team and yourself in a position where you don't have to always make adjustments. Sometimes you're just like, everything is working perfectly. Now we just have to make changes to sustain that and not to alter anything. So that's what I want to see from him. I want to see his become better at setting up his team for success rather than managing the game well.
Yeah, and that's something that he, a lot of the players last year at the beginning of the season, they were saying, "Oh my God, Laurent Courtois is such a great communicator. He we understand what he wants. He's clear." But what would happen, Elias, at the end of each game? It just felt like every time Laurent Courtois was giving the microphone, he would say, "Yeah, well, it just seems like they weren't really understanding what I was telling them. Players were kind of doing whatever they wanted. So it's like somewhere along the way, something was lost that nobody understood, right?" So what I want to see from Laurent Courtois is if he is being clear, if he knows what needs to be done, then it needs to translate to the field, and you can't have any more players going, rogue and trying to do their own play, right? So definitely something that I expect to have a more disciplined team that follows his style, regardless of who the player is in that's there, right? So regardless if we win or lose, what do you want to see come out of the game that will give you confidence for the rest of the season?
I want to see a point. No, I think that them not retreating into their shell the way they almost always do whenever they go to Atlanta, them maybe not dominating the game, because I said, right, that's not realistic, at least for right now. If they do, hey, I'm not going to complain. Mm-hmm. But I think that them managing the game well and managing a lot of the elements where they struggled last year, as in like poor starts, very weird around the 60th minute or the 50th minute before those game changes came in, stuff like that. I want them to see them manage those elements of the game better, right? If we're talking about outside results, their game management has to become more effective. At home, it's a different thing. We'll talk about it before the first home game, but on the road, that was definitely a sore spot where were not able to. They were forced to grow into the game rather than managing it from the get-go. And I think that is the thing I'm looking at the most, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. That one of the things that I'm looking for the most is for them to able to be rigorous about their style and the way that they want to do things, and continue showing that throughout the game, regardless if they're losing 5-0 or they're winning 5-0, right? It's just stick to your style, stick to what works, and just let the person that replaces you do the same job, and maybe even better. Because Elias, as we know it, even during the 2022 season with Wilfred Nancy, there were games that CF Montreal lost terribly, but that didn't take away. One thing that they said, Elias, that we'll talk about later, Gabriel Gervais mentioned, and they mentioned it several times last season. They said the Chicago game really messed us up. If it wasn't for the Chicago game, it really messed us up.
But I mean, look at how they were playing before that, right? If you look at their record, if you look at not just the record, but the way that they were handing people the game, right? They were handing people going, this is the game we're going to play, and we're going to make you play it because we are going in there. Like that game, even that game in Chicago. When you look at it, right, they went into Chicago and they ran the ship for, when did he get sent off?
Until the red card, yeah.
For just about over an hour, right? They were going in there and they were dictating everything. And I'm trying to find the start of the season.
Which part?
The start of the season last year, where they started the season on a tear, right? They started off
against Orlando, FC
Dallas, with a draw and then 2 wins.
Yeah,
right. So they started off with 7 points in 3 games, and then after Orlando hit, they lose the next 2 after that, right? And they never really recover. Even if they didn't lose, they didn't go on that horrible run of like 11 winless games until months later. You could tell that was the catalyst, right?
Yeah.
Maybe avoid that bullshit.
Yeah, and it's just to kind of keep the ship running, right? Because as we learned much later, there were problems already being shown during that period. So definitely something we want to see improve, and Laurent is at the helm of that. He needs to make sure that the ship is running correctly, right? So to finish this segment off, final score prediction for the Atlanta game:
3-2 Atlanta.
Our listeners, what are your predictions for the Atlanta game? What's the final score prediction? I
Where's
say we lose 2-1.
2-1. Okay.
We lose. But I won't be looking at the final score because that's me. I'm probably going to be looking at around everything else besides the final score. Cool. So we're gonna move on to our last part of the show. CF Montreal revealed their primary jersey that they are calling the original jersey, l'original,
Original jersey.
with a mix of the old and the new.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Elias? I don't know if you have a picture of it, but what are
I'm
your
getting
thoughts
it
on
now.
that?
I just realized I didn't. I thought I had it, and I didn't end up having it.
So, in the meantime, Roberto says that Atlanta's going to win 2-0. Cool. All right. At least I guess that's positive, but yeah, that's
How's that positive?
It's not 5-0.
But I mean, Robbie is completely like he's right. That's very well could be. The thing is, Montreal and Atlanta is not a fun fixture for them, right? And here is the jersey, by the way. Beautiful, sensational.
So, what are your thoughts? Now you can answer my question. What are your thoughts?
Yeah,
when you saw it, what was your like? What did you think?
Well, I mean, it was rumored that that's what they were going back to.
Yeah.
With like early leaks, but like nothing was confirmed, and this, that, and the other. But I recognize my club again. It's exactly what everybody wanted, right? I mean, maybe people don't like the logo still, but I mean, in terms of a kit, an overall kit, I'm gonna put it up again. In terms of an overall kit,
my lad,
they hit the nail on the head, right? And the thing is, it really wasn't that difficult. Bleu Blanc Noir, that's their name.
Yeah.
Put the colors in. It's literally just that. Yeah. Also, Patrick with the most optimistic one, with a 1-1 draw. Yeah, that'd be. That could honestly, I think that's probably best case scenario is a 1-1 draw. If they hold them to that, I think everybody in Montreal says absolutely yes, please and thank you.
Yeah. Hey man, as long as we don't lose Mahalo Poku within the first 13 minutes to a 3-month ankle injury, we're good. But yeah, no, the jersey, when I saw it, I actually liked the video a lot. The video presentation with the music.
Awesome. That's one
jamming,
thing, man. It's Montreal. They've got their video. They saw the roses. They saw the roses video, and they're like, "Shit, we gotta step our game up."
Yeah, man. I was like,
and they did a good job. They did a good job.
So the important thing is, besides you and I liking Elias, obviously there are a lot of people that follow this club. A lot of people that have opinions about it, right? So I did a little poll on my page where I asked people, you know, my followers or the followers of the Ball is Round, that you know, what were their thoughts on the jersey? Was it amongst the best or amongst the worst? Because some people might think it's bad. I don't know if you have that graphic with you there, Elias, but yeah, it definitely was interesting to see where people were thinking about this. I do believe we had a major majority of amongst the best.
Yeah, it was 83%, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, there you go. So amongst the best, 86% amongst the worst, 1%. And whatever, 13%. Some people don't care at all, which is fine. But it was surprising to me personally how, you know, the massive majority of them were actually okay with it. And I think that's good, because I think in a way, as you mentioned, Elias, I think that's the reaction of the fan. The fan today is like, I recognize my club again, right? I recognize the jersey. I recognize the colors. It wasn't that hard, but now I'm willing to give it a second chance because I recognize the jersey. I recognize the colors. And
I think a lot of people have kind of come to terms with the fact that they will never be called the Montreal Impact again.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, it was a nice touch to put EMP ACT on the back of the kit, of the neck. Yeah. It's a nice touch. Again, there's always going to be people that will never let it go. I mean, understandably, but the majority of CF Montreal fans and followers have kind of come to terms with that, and they've reached acceptance, right? The final stage of grief. This kit is kind of a covenant. Oh, again, along with the logo redesign, where they said mea culpa, the logo sucked. This is the better logo, and everyone agreed this is a much better logo. But this kit now is also them continuing. What I hope is a continuation of their commitment to the city, in that just because we've rebranded does not mean we are a different club. And I hope that they continue with that kind of mentality, because it does seem the last two years specifically, they've gone the extra mile with trying to represent what the Montreal and Quebec footballing community is.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a good start, but you know, especially in Montreal, it's always what have you done for me lately, not what have you done.
Yeah.
So the next step now, you know, you got a jersey, cool. New logo, cool. When are we going to start seeing tangible commitments and improvements, right? Are we going to see any development, right? It's been over a year now, a year and a half at least, I think, since Gabriel Gervais talked about what the plans for the stadium are, right? It's very clear that Olympic Stadium is not going to be available anytime soon. So what tangible things are next to kind of renew this commitment to the football community? Because the jersey is nice. Good job. You killed it with the jersey. You don't sit on your laurels for the next 2 years because you gave Montrealers a good jersey.
Yeah. We always want to, yeah, I know there's a lot of work to be done. And that actually brings me to my last part here, Elias, is Gabriel Gervais went kind of on a press tour this week with BPM Sport and RDS, where he gave some answers that revealed a lot, actually. It was a short interviews, but with a lot of information, as any Gabriel Gervais interview does. You guys can find the transcript on our Patreon page. If you guys ever want to read it in English, it is available there for free, or you guys can watch the the videos on YouTube as well. But there was one thing he said. He said there had been sort of workshops with the league where every team around the league is involved about the change of calendar. He made it sound like the team is getting ready for this massive change, including actively looking for options to play during winter. Elias, we've talked about it in this podcast before about the change. We briefly brushed over it because we said we're going to wait for the announcement. We're going to wait for all that because it's true. There's nothing official, nothing signed.
Yeah.
But when the president of CF Montreal is saying, yeah, you know what? We're actually working towards that. We're actually really looking at it seriously now. To me, it kind of becomes a thing of, hey, you know what? It actually might be a real thing. Like, it actually might happen if they are putting themselves in this task. They are adding this task to themselves. What do you think of that? With him saying that they're looking at options, and he even said it in one of the interviews. He said, "We're even looking at the building you see behind me, which was the Olympic Stadium." He said, "We're looking what we can do there."
Two things that stuck out. First, I want to talk about Robbie is very correct. They look good, too pricey though, 100%. Way too expensive.
Nation, baby.
We're not going to get into the pricing of jerseys because, again, you're right. It is abhorrent. I'm not spending $150 on a jersey. No, sorry. But my biggest concern about what Gabriel Gervais said was this: if this is going to happen, this is imminent, right? This is in the next year or two. If you're talking about Olympic Stadium, that means you're talking about training on a different kind of pitch than you play on. Because they just spent, a couple $1 million like 3 years ago to put in the new turf for Olympic Stadium. They're not going to turn Saputo Stadium into turf. This is assuming that they're playing there, right? This makes no sense for me that you would be playing on turf, then you'd be training on turf, then playing on grass. I don't know how long we've been asking the club, will there be a bubble installed at Saint-Nicolas? Will we ever get a straight answer? Who the hell knows? But all this to say, it does not matter, because if you want to have your games at Stade Saputo without a heated pitch, that means from at the very least, I'm talking about we're trimming down as much as possible from November to April. You cannot play. That's over a third of the season. That's a huge chunk.
That's insane,
right?
man.
5 months that you cannot play at Stade Saputo.
What are you going to do?
At that point, if you have, August to November and then April to May at Stade Saputo and then the rest at Olympic Stadium, you do not have a permanent home. I can't think of a single top-tier professional club that wants to take itself seriously that doesn't have a permanent home. And so, look, you see it in Germany, you see it in every European country that uses the September to May calendar that snows. They just shovel it off and they have a heated pitch. That's all you have to do, and that'll be fine. Maybe build some cover for the people because they don't want to get snowed on. But there's paths there. There are solutions. My problem is they're still talking about solutions, and this thing is allegedly imminent. I'm talking about the next year or two. Next year or two, you're not talking about solutions. You have to talk about the solutions I have, not the solutions I'm looking at.
It's such a weird answer, Elias. It's a weird answer that he gives where he's like...
And Sofyan with a really good comment. Why
Shout out
is it
Sof.
so candid sometimes and so secretive some other times? Because this is Montreal.
Sometimes he seems to be honest, and other times he's like, I'm just not going to talk about it. It's like, dude, so are you going to tell us? Or, like, come on, man. Like, sometimes it's frustrating. Anyway, shout out to Sofyan. But, yeah, it's just such a weird answer, Elias, because it's like, like you said, it's imminent. Like, he makes it sound like, guys, we're in the process of all this. It's part. He's not denying it. He denied it before where he was like, nothing's official. We're not there yet. Nothing's official. He would say he didn't want to expand on it. Now, this time around, he actually expanded on it. He said, we're actually looking at options, including this one. Somebody asked him about, I think it was the same guy, Martin Lemay, asked him about the heated stadium, and he said, I don't know if I can do that. So it's tricky, man. Like I just I don't understand exactly what to expect of that. I don't, and like you said, Elias, if they want to be a serious team, they need to figure it out themselves, right? Like how they're gonna do it. I do see that some people are responding.
I mean, Patrick talking about winterizing the stadium and MJR as well. Winterizing means, again, winterizing. Even if you do winterize the stadium, attendance is dubious because remember now you have 2 professional hockey teams you have to compete with, and depending on when the schedule starts, football as well. On top of that, you have NFL that people sit home and watch on. If you are in this, this February to November calendar, you get a massive chunk of your schedule when there's no NFL, no CFL, no NHL, no NBA.
Mm-hmm.
You have to complete with baseball. And baseball is its own thing, but they're hemorrhaging viewers as well. You have a perfect, not monopoly, but you have a perfect opportunity to kind of hold on to viewers, and then you get to keep them because you get to show off your product. If you have to now compete with bigger leagues, you will lose all your viewership, especially since you insist on having all the games at the same time. You're going to lose what a few viewers you already have. So I don't think that's a good idea, but
it's silly, man, because
I understand this impulse, but I also don't get it because they try so hard to make themselves not a European league, but they're going to follow the European calendar now. No, you don't have to. You're going out of your way to North Americanize your league, to say we have playoffs, to say we have, forget your 2-leg ties. We have best of 3 series, all this stuff. But when it comes to the calendar, which is the one thing you're doing right, you're going to go and say, actually, we're going to change that one, make it more European. No, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't change it.
I don't know, man. It's weird. It's strange. And the lack of clarity, and again, Gabriel Gervais was not clear, but yet being very clear. And so Sofiane said, I agree with Patrick Bamnoni-wise. I doubt the Saputo family shells out $500 million for a new stadium. Absolutely right. There's no way he does it. There's no way they do it. It'd be nice. And yeah, the hope is that the Big O is ready in less than 5 years, and Montreal plays home games elsewhere, or skew the schedule heavily for Cold City Club. Could happen too. I mean, look, it's I don't know if the Big O is a solution, Elias. It's gonna be such a strange thing for the club.
It's not the solution. It's not. It's not.
It's not as easy as 1, 2, 3. But he also did say something. He said the reason for Laurent Simon and Eduardo Sebrango's departure from the first team was based on Laurent Courtois' need to be successful. He emphasized Marco Donadel's experience and other coaches' specialty. Elias, is this an upgrade for Laurent Courtois, his bench now, compared? again, I don't want to talk about him taking shots because sometimes it feels like he's taking shots, but at the same time, he's like, guys, just focus on what's coming. Forget about these people that left.
He's such a diva. I love him. Oh,
man,
such a diva. In the good way, not the bad way. I'm not taking a shot at Gabriel Jaffet, by the way, but I get it because it's an upgrade, but it also isn't. Right? You take a look at the experience with the club that Sabrango and Simon have, and that is invaluable. Donadel coming in is obviously super important, but he hasn't been in the club in a while, right? This is recent, tangible experience with the current project and the current system that Simon Courtois and Sabrango have. But on the other hand, you are bringing in people who, again, besides Donadel, when we talk about Thayander and Johnson, that are intimately familiar with not just Laurent Courtois as a person, but as a coach. They speak the same language, they understand, and they are on the same page tactically. So when Laurent Courtois says something or he wants something, or when they are talking and they're having their meetings, or they're having, even during the season, their post-game breakdowns, they are on the same page because these are people that have gone through it with Laurent Courtois. So I see it in an upgrade for Laurent Courtois, but if I see it as an upgrade for the club, you can't say that yet. That remains to be seen.
It's exactly. I think you're absolutely right. It remains to be seen. I mean, it's new things. It's a new name. I don't know if it was necessary for him to say that they are setting him up to succeed, almost like he wasn't set up to succeed in the past with them on the bench. But it is really, it's going to be special to see one of the phases of the game that we're also going to be observing. Elias, we mentioned a little bit earlier phases of the game that we want to see. The coaching bench is going to be something that we're going to see how that progresses, because there's going to be moments, unfortunately, where there might be 3-game losing streaks, or there might be 5-game losing streaks, or 11-game losing streaks. So how does the how does the coaching react to that? Do they split, which happened last season, or do they come together? What's going to happen? So that's something that's definitely going to be interesting to see. We have a question. Is talk of a season change really to match seasons of Europe? Spring, fall season will be a huge advantage to the likes of LA Galaxy, LFC, and other teams based in the Southern USA. Southern teams won new kind of just yeah. I
mean, that is a good point.
Yeah.
But the thing is, games are playable in the heat. Games are not playable in the snow. Right? So I do think it's more of a lineup. I mean, one of the catalysts for this change was the transfer windows, and the fact that teams in Europe aren't willing to sell players in the middle of the season when MLS is in the off season, and MLS clubs are not super excited about selling clubs in the middle of the season, which is when most clubs in Europe and elsewhere do their acquisitions because it's their off season. So those two windows not gelling well with elsewhere is definitely one of the considerations. I think weather is also a very important consideration, because again, when you play Atlanta in the middle of July, or you go into Dallas and it's 35 degrees, 40 degrees with the humidity, that's not a healthy situation. But playing in minus 20 at even a winterized Olympic Stadium, even a winterized Saputo Stadium is not healthy either, right? So there's it's a double-edged sword. And I think that you can't, when you have such a big region that your league is in, right? It's an entire continent when you think about it. That is in MLS. You're going to have wild swings in temperature and in weather and in just, topography. So you can't please everybody. But the thing is, the way the league is now makes more sense for the entirety of the league than just catering to the southern teams, because it gets hot. It's still going to be hot in August. It's going to be hot in May. Just less hot.
Yeah. I mean, it's we've seen it get very, very hot. Hot in here, even in October, right? Yeah, Tate, what you said, as the former owners of the USFL, how going head to head again. It's tricky, man. It's all about viewership and what's going on. Even me, like when I was younger, like I if you gave me the choice between watching, MLS or NFL, I grew up in the United States. I would obviously say, well, what's the one that's going to bring, the more entertainment or whatever. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about more the temperature and whatnot. But it's very important to take all these things into consideration. And to answer Tokyo Titano's question, is talk of a season change really match seasons with Europe? Yes, it is. That's what they said that the change is for. That is absolutely that they said that they want to do it because of that. And are there other reasons? Are there more benefits to some people, some teams than to other teams? Absolutely. And this is one that would affect Montreal directly. And I mean, I don't sense, Elias, that they're like, I didn't sense a Gabriel Gervais that was nervous or scared or avoiding the question, but it just sounds like they're trying their best, but it's at the same time, like you said, it's rapidly approaching, right? It's not something that's happening in 10 years and we have time they have time to plan. It's happening tomorrow. Like, it's happening very soon, and they really need to get their stuff together so that they can go ahead and give at least the viewers, the fans, those that follow the team, a clear idea as to what's coming up. Another in one of the interviews, he was asked, based on the calendar change, should those fans that follow the CF Montreal, should they be concerned about the team's future? And he said, no, we're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. Cool. Good to know. Now give us, besides just telling us that cool message, can you give us something concrete, like you said, right? Something concrete. This is the plan. This is how we're going to adapt. This is how we're going to adjust. Whatever it is, give us something concrete. So just to end the show here, Elias, we had, I think, one question by one of our friends. I don't know if we already answered
By
the
Robbie,
show.
yes.
So Robbie T asked us, so who's listening? Based on the players we have, what do you think the best starting 11 setup would be? Not what Courtois will go for, but what would you do? Thanks. Oh, I like that. I know we went through the starting lineup. Elias, what would you do? You're coach of CF Montreal today. Oh, I'll even add a cheat code, Elias.
Oh God.
Nobody's injured. Everybody's fully fit.
Oh, okay, yeah, but I mean, right now, technically nobody's injured right now either, right?
Do you do same formation?
Am I picking who I think is the 11 best players? I'm not picking the same formation.
Oh.
I'm picking a 4-2-3-1. Again, I'm not saying this makes sense tactically. I'm putting the 11 best players on the field.
Okay.
I'm putting a 4-2-3-1. I've got Pierce and Jaquil Marsh-Rudy as my fullbacks. I've got Sylvain Nets, obviously. I've got Waterman and I've got Campbell as my central defenders. I've got Piet and Saliba as a double pivot. Not much change now. I've got actually this 11 is remarkably similar. Anyway, I've got Vilsaint on the left. I've got Clark in the middle. I've got Mahala up top. And right now, I've got Sunusi up top.
I gave you a cheat code.
And I used it.
And you put Sunusi on top.
You're damn right. Right now, everyone is already fit. That's not.
I am outraged.
Everyone is already fit. And remember, Robbie's question was, based on the players we have, who do you think is the best starting 11 setup would be? Right.
Okay.
Right now, currently, Vrioni has barely trained. Again, fitness is not. He's healthy. He just hasn't trained. Owusu is not super reliable in front of goal. That's the 11 best players, I think, right now.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I would probably do the same formation. I would put the 3 back. I would put Jalen Neal, Joel Waterman, and George Campbell. I put Jalen Neal on the left. I put George Campbell on the right, Joel Waterman in the middle. Same as you, Nathan Saliba and Samuel Piet in the middle. Wing backs, I would have Sealy on the left, and because we disagree, you want Pierce, I want Sealy, and on the right, JMR. I think there's no discussion with that. On the 2, I would put Caden Clark and Bryce Duke because I like how Bryce Duke performs when there's no pressure on him and the pressure is on Caden Clark. And on top, I would put Vrioni. So that's my prediction.
Very well could be the actual starting 11 when everyone's fully integrated. So
sorry, Sanusi. But yeah. All right, so where the Canadian and Roberto with some breaking news. The Canadian men's U17 national team booked their spot in a tournament that will be held in Qatar this November after recording a perfect 4-0-0 record.
Very good.
Bravo. Good job. Well, that's it. That's it for the show today, guys. I did want to go ahead and tell you guys, thank you, everyone who joined us today. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As always, the podcast, and I do want to give a special shout out to our guest today that joined us. Thank you, Eureka. It was a fantastic. You made the show, big portion of the show, very fun to all our listeners. As always, the podcast will always be free to listen and watch on all of our platforms. Make sure to check out our Patreon page for exclusive member content. And don't forget to sign up and support the show, which will allow us to grow the product. Guys, I've said this last week and I said the week before. A big shout out to everybody that keeps signing up. We are seeing you guys. We see you guys and we love it. Thank you so much for the support. Why Can I Talk? And thank you again for all of you who tuned in tonight. And see you next week for episode 215 of The Ball is Round.